Hi, it's Anne here, and today's video is my review of the Oden's Eye Jewels and Gem palette. So this is the first Oden's Eye palette I've ever tried, and I've been using it for maybe the past month, so I feel like I've gotten to really know this palette. So how I'm going to do this video is I will just talk about the palette in general, I will show swatches, I will show a couple of eye looks. I then will do some comparison shadows. I did find some dupes or some things that I think might be dupes. I haven't actually swatched them yet, or close to similar vibes. And then I'll just round out with my final thoughts of the palette. So everything will be timestamped below. So if there's anything you're specifically interested in, you can just jump to that timestamp. So for this palette, it is a 15 pan eyeshadow palette, and it retails for around $39.50 US, which is around $53.60 Canadian as of checking right now, which is a little bit pricey. When all said and done, when I ordered this, it was $62 Canadian, which works out to be about $4.13 per shadow, which is actually not bad when you break it out that way, but it does feel a little overwhelming at first. You're like, ooh, 60 bucks for a palette, which for me is on the high end. $40, I'm like, okay, that's expensive, but I can do $40. As soon as I get into the $60 or $80 range, I'm like, ooh, I have to really think about purchasing them. So that's why I haven't purchased from Oden's Eye, just because, again, it's a bit pricey. I know I have to pay shipping, all that kind of stuff. I do feel like I missed out on the Christmas Eve palette. So when I saw this palette, I did kind of hesitate a little bit, but I was like, no, I do want to get it because the Christmas Eve one sold out. Other ones have sold out that I have wanted. This one is still on their website, so it's still available as of filming this and should be as of posting. So yeah, so let's get into the swatches. Ecstasy is a light grayish lavender color. It's a matte. Elatedness is a sheer white sparkle, more of a topper type shade. Elation is a nice soft mauvey pink color. Again, this is another matte. Exhilaration is a pink or a purple sparkle with a bit of a pink shift and a deep, I wouldn't say black base, but more of a gray toned base. Heaven is a nice gray tone with a bit of a pink undertone, purple undertone to it. High is a sheer, again, slightly topper type shade with a peachy undertone and gold and green sparkles. Intoxication is a deeper plummy purple color, gray purple. Paradise is a silvery blue sparkle with a deep blue base. Again, it's a bit of a muted sparkle. Rapture is a matte blue, again with a bit of a gray tone to it. Rhapsody is a really beautiful champagne type color with a bit of a pink shift and a pinky peachy undertone. Seventh Heaven is, again, another grayish type green color. Everything has a gray tone to it. Really nice matte color. Swoon is a beautiful shifting metallic color. Basically all the colors of the rainbow. You can see pink, you can see yellow, you can see green, you can see blue, you can see all the shades. And it transforms with each look that you wear it with. Transition, again, another grayish type teal color. And it's a matte. Gorgeousness is a soft, old gold shimmer with a blue, light blue base, or sorry, a gray blue base. And Sawsville is a reddish brown type shade, probably the least unique shade in the bunch. this first look, we're starting with the shade Heaven. I really, really enjoy this shade. It's one that I like to jump in and use. It's looking a little dark here. My lighting is a bit low. I will fix it in a minute or two. It's like a purpley gray color. It's showing purple, more purple on camera. I think my camera's picking up the color a bit more. I think in real life it does show a little bit more gray. It also looks a little more gray in the pan than what it does once you do put it on your eye. I feel like this happens with a few of these shades. Not nearly so much as the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde. I feel like that palette has that tendency as well. But yeah, so as you'll see, and this is the first of many, I feel like the mattes are patchy. I shouldn't say I feel like, they are patchy. They're patchy for me. It could also be user error. I don't use a lot of deep colored mattes. And I find these ones were hard to work with. So I'm doing a lot of blending. I actually cut out a lot of the blending because I spent a lot of time. Now we're going in with the shade Intoxication. And again, just deepening out the corner. I really wanted to go with like a smoky purple look for this one. I really like this shade. Again, this shade, there's my lighting fixed. Again, this shade will be patchy if I use it like all over the lid, but I feel like targeting it as like a deeper shadow color, I don't notice the patchiness as much. Again, I just find these a bit finicky. I feel like the formula, I think is like, if I think of texture of like sand when it's wet, that's what this formula feels a little bit more. It's not a very dry formula, so I feel like it sticks to the eyelid. I didn't use any primer or anything on my eyelids. I had a little bit of, so I'm just going in with Ecstasy here just to sort of try and blend everything together. I really like this shade for that. I use the shade in a lot of my looks to blend when I'm like, this isn't working and I just want to blend things out. But yeah, what I was saying was I didn't use any eyeshadow primer, which is not typical for me, but I just wanted to see how these performed without primer. But I did have a bit of foundation like on my sponge, so when I did my foundation on my face, I like did a bit of that on my eyelids just to sort of like blank out some of the veins. But you can see like I didn't put any sort of base on my eyelids before I started. See, there's a lot of blending going on with these shades, or these shadows, particularly the mattes. So now I'm going in with the shade Exhilaration. I like to, you'll see I'll flip in between or flip back and forth from using my fingers versus using the brush. I do really like to apply the sort of shimmery glitter shades with my finger. I do feel like these are sort of more topper type shades. Even the ones that do have a bit of a thicker swatch, like this one did have a bit of a thicker swatch, I still wouldn't just go straight in with this as like a full-on lid color. And then here I'm going in with the shade Elatedness. Again, this is a shade that I sort of throw into a lot of looks to brighten the look up. I do have really deep set eyes, so I feel like going in with all dark colors is a little much, and I just try and mix it up with a bit of a light color. And then here I am going in with Intoxication just to smoke out the lower lash line. Again, not something I do very often, but I felt like this look needed that extra bit. And then here it is with mascara and liner. So here's the final look. I really, really like this look. I feel like these looks on camera, the camera just does not do this palette justice. They look really, really beautiful in person. And every time I wear this palette, I get compliments. Now we're going into look number 2, and we're starting off with the shade Seventh Heaven. Again, I'm not a very green eyeshadow person, but I really like this shade. I like that it's sort of a gray tone green. It's a muddy green. It's like a dirty green, the olivey type green. If I'm going to wear a green, I either want it to be like a dirty type green or like a teal type green. I'm not a true like green person. But yeah, you're going to see this one. This one was really patchy. I was kind of annoyed. And it's interesting because I felt like in person, when I'm looking in the mirror, I didn't see the patchiness as much, but when I look on camera, I definitely see the patchiness of this shade, and I had to go in. I decided again to go in with Ecstasy to try and blend things out. This didn't work like I hoped it would. This ended up just being more gray and muddy, so again, I just spent a ton of time blending. I will say I like to, like most of the shades, or the most the way I use this eyeshadow the most in this palette is I use the mattes, and then I feel like I'm using the glitter to, sorry, just gotta keep up with what I'm doing here. So I'm gonna deepen the crease here with Swazzle. I had to look up what that word meant. It's actually a pretty funny thing that they kept that name in here because it's not common. I know this brand, they're not English as their first language, I don't think. So what I was saying though is I feel like I'm using the glitters to sort of like mask some of the patchiness of the mattes. But yeah, this look that I did is really sort of out of my comfort zone. I was trying to be a bit creative and pull together some colors that I hadn't tried before. So this was the first time I've done this look. The purple look I've done before. I've used every single shade in this in like a bunch of different combinations, but this is a first for me with this look, and I liked how it turned out. It was a little sort of muddy in a way, but not. It's one of those looks that comes together in the end. This, how do you pronounce it? Swazzle color is definitely the least unique color in the palette. So then I'm going in with High. I really like pairing High with Seventh Heaven. I feel like they really work together. It really pulls the green out of this shimmer. And the shimmer's a really interesting shimmer. Like I feel like when I did this look, it pulled more green. When I've done other looks, it pulls more gold. It's just, yeah, it's a very, very interesting color. I really, really like this shimmer. And it's a different kind of shimmer for me to use. I normally don't gravitate towards this kind of a color. And then I pulled in one of my favorite colors. This is called Swoon. I use this all the time. This is my party color. I've worn it like at least once a week since I've had this palette. And anytime I have something special going on, it's the shadow that I pull. It just makes every look great, and it looks great on its own. There'll be sometimes where I just wear this eyeshadow on its own and nothing else. And again, every time I wear this eyeshadow, I get compliments. I mean, there's something magical about this shade. And I really, really enjoy wearing it because it's glittery, but it's not too like glitter. You know what I mean? Like it's still got a bit of thickness or depth to it. Not depth, but like, yeah, thickness, I guess is the word. It's not just glitter particles. Yeah, I really, really like that color. It just sort of really brings together. And then I decided to throw on a little bit of Seventh Heaven on the lower lash line again, just to sort of tie the look together. And then here's just the eyeshadow on its own. And then here's it with lashes and eyeliner. And the eyeliner is Hooked on Espresso from Milani, and then L'Oreal Lash Paradise is the mascara that I'm wearing. I really enjoyed how this looked. Again, I feel like the camera just did not really do this justice. In person, this was just a really wow type look. Yeah, I really, really like how this came together. And the third look that I want to show you is just what I'm wearing today, is what I do most often with this eyeshadow palette. I generally just pair one matte with one shimmer, and that's it. So today I'm wearing this shade right here, which is called Elation, with this shade right here, which is called Rhapsody. So again, Rhapsody is a shade in the pan. It looks kind of weird. It looks like one of those brownie greens. That's not at all what it is. It's like a champagne-y type shimmer color with a bit of a pink twist, like pink shift to it. It's one of those colors that just looks so pretty. Like between Rhapsody and Swoon, those are like the two main reasons why I'm really glad I bought this palette. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try and do some swatching, comparison swatches. And I haven't fully like done all these swatches. Some of them I've checked already, some I haven't. But we're going to start off with, let's see. Well, the first thing I want to talk about was one palette. Freshy Fresh, Miss Fresh did mention this palette as reminding her, and I see that. I definitely see. It's the BH, sorry, I'm trying to get my hands together. The BH Cosmetics Romantic Nomad palette. Definitely feels similar vibe, but it's definitely more warm toned, but similar vibes. Like there's definitely similar vibes in there for sure. I see that. I definitely see like the same feels. So for example, this green shade, let's try this shade over here. So this blue shade in this palette, and then the shade Rapture. So you think shades are going to be similar. So the blue shade on the end here with Rapture, like they're not the same. They're close, like, or not close, but they're like, they make you think of each other, but they're not the same. Another palette where I thought there was a similar shade. So this shade over here reminded me, I was thinking about this shade. So let's just swatch those together. Let's swatch a couple in here. There's Off Balance and Libra. So again, not the same at all. But it was like, oh, I think there's a shade in that palette, but it's not. So that's what I'm finding with a lot of the dupes that I was finding. They weren't the same, but they were close. I feel like a few of the shades. Sorry, I did bring a lot of palettes. So like, I was thinking there was stuff in here, the Royal Affair with like the greens, but these are not, like this is too brown, this is too green. So things felt similar, but they weren't the same. I feel like the white shade, there were some like multiple matches that I could find. So let's try All Tied Up from this palette. This is the Too Faced All Natural Lust palette. Well, the Huda Beauty has a white, I think, doesn't it? Yes, the Huda Beauty has this shade right here, which is called Supermoon. So again, that definitely has similar vibes. Zodiac palette, so tried and true BH Zodiac palette. We got a white right in the middle of this one. It's not pure white though, it's kind of more yellowy. And then I'll swatch the white from this palette so you can see Elatedness. So that Elatedness is on the top. That one was from BH Cosmetics. This one is from Huda Beauty. And this one is, I can't remember. I can't remember which palette that was. Too Faced. That's the Too Faced one. So again, the white is not super unique. I would say texture-wise though, like I don't know how. There we go. I think you can see there. It's just a different texture. It's a very textured. There's no good way of saying that, but more of a textured snow kind of look to it. One of the shades that I immediately thought of, actually there's a few shades, so let's go into more of the glitter shades. I felt like the mattes were harder to dupe. This matte, not hard to dupe though. Like there's a ton of shades. Like there's a shade in this Kathleen Lights palette. Like this one over here gets kind of close to it. I have this whole thing basically. So this shade right here, I'm not even going to swatch these because they're similar but different. Cute Alert from ColourPop. These were from some of those Rimmel palettes. So there's definitely shadows that are close enough that once you put it on the eye, they're going to look the same. I even pulled out like this palette because a couple of the shades, so here, that's what I was thinking about. So like this pink shade right here called Warm Rose, as well as the shade Glistening Snow. Like the white and the pink shades, I feel like similar but different. The one shade I wanted to talk about is this one. So this shade here, the High shade, it's like a topper coat version of a shade in the BH Cosmetics palette. So I'm just going to swatch that one and then swatch the BH Cosmetics one. To me, it's very much a dupe of the shade, the shimmer shade for Aquarius. So the BH Cosmetics palette has like a shimmer and a matte for each shade. Again, I thought some of the mattes, like there's an olivey matte. There's an olivey matte here that I thought would match Seventh Heaven, and it doesn't, but it's close. So here is those two shades. So the top one is Aquarius, and then the bottom one is High. I feel like they have similar vibes, but High has a bit more green in it, and it's a bit more like a topper shade. But I felt like those had similar vibes. Another shadow that I thought of, I probably have a dupe of this one. I think I do. It's this shade right here called Gorgeousness. And it's sort of that like greeny blue. My hand is so glittery right now. Greeny blue shade. And when I have the Violet Voss, this palette, the Violet Voss Flamingo palette, and there's a shade in here called Surf. This one right here, which I felt like that's got to be kind of similar. It's not, but it made me think of it. Like one is like the brighter sister of the other. So the top shade is Surf, and then the bottom shade is Gorgeousness. So again, like everything in this palette, I might have something similar to it, but I just feel like what's in that palette is like just a little different and mostly more gray toned. Like there's just more of a bit of a gray base to it compared to other shadows that I have. And then the other dupe that I thought of, and I'm not sure if anybody, I'm sure people have posted this already. Like, I'm not the first person. This palette's been out for a while. But and this is why I'm leaving this one last, because it's going to be the messiest. The shade that's one of my favorite shades. Where is the palette? Well, that's the Oden's Eye palette. It's right here. So one of my favorite shades, the shade Swoon. So when I saw Swoon in the thing, I was like, oh, this really reminds me of Hungry Ghost. Just looking at it. Hungry Ghost from ColourPop. No, it's not the same. At least I don't think it is. Hungry Ghost is definitely like a glitter. So I've got it here in the Truly Madly Deeply palette. Oh, there is one that I missed, but yeah, like it's a messy. There is one that I missed. We're going to have to do it on my other hand. It's similar. Like they have a similar shift. Like they're the same shift, but they're a completely different texture. And I like Hungry Ghost as a look. And you can see they're shifting almost exactly the same. Hungry Ghost is on top, and then Swoon is on the bottom. Just the formula of Swoon is so much better. It's just more of a metallic. Even though it's still like a glitter, it's like a glitter metallic. It's like a hybrid in between the two. I've made a mess. I have glitter everywhere. The last one that I want to talk about, and I don't know where the palette is. Where did you go, palette? There it is. Was a kind of a surprise matchup. So this purple over here, this is from the Too Faced Razzle Dazzle palette. We're just going to swatch these right here. It was very, very similar to the shade Exhilaration. So the purple shade right here. The Razzle Dazzle, if you have the Razzle Dazzle palette, you'll know that that formula is different than anything else. It's like squishy. So it does feel different, but they're very, very similar. Like I would say Elation is like the more glittery sister, but they're very similar. So it's like a bit brighter because it's got a bit more glitter. But yeah, I was like, oh, I do have a shade that kind of matches that. Now, I don't have a super extensive collection. There's a lot of palettes I don't have. I don't have a lot of custom palettes. That's the only Oden's Eye palette I have as well. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any dupes within Oden's Eye palettes. But yeah, like I was surprised to see that I was able to find dupes, but at the same time not surprised because I knew they weren't going to be exactly the same. Like I just knew when I got this palette, I'm like, I don't have things that are exactly the same as this. It's just a very unique palette to me. I feel like this is going to be great going into fall. Because to me, this is fall. Even though I've been using it like for half the summer, I feel like this is more of a fall vibes to me, like a September, a back to school September type vibe. September and then November, because I want to use something like pumpkin spice in October. But this to me is like a September or like a November type palette or December type palette. This would be really nice around Christmas time. I really enjoy this palette. It is kind of expensive, but when you break it down per shadow, it's not too bad. The mattes, though, are patchy. And again, some of that could be user error, could be just the shape of my eye, the eyeshadow brushes that I'm using. I didn't use any primer, but I have had that experience since purchasing this palette that I just struggle with the mattes. I love the color. I love the colors of the matte. And to me, it's worth like working through that because I like the color. And again, it's not too hard to work through it. I didn't spend like hours and hours or like I didn't feel like I ruined a look. Like I couldn't work with it. I just find like I have other eyeshadow palettes where it's like I can just throw the eyeshadow on and it's just so easy. Whereas this takes a bit of work for me. Anyway, I hope you liked this review of the Oden's Eye Jewels and Gem palette. If you did, feel free to give this video a little thumbs up down below. If you haven't already, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel here in Toronto, Canada. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you sometime soon. Bye.